Good afternoon, everyone. I am what I am, a ex-host over at Revolution Radio. I'm naming this video "The Miraculous Education of Dr. Alonzo Fleming of the Fleming Team, who is doing a show over at Revolution Radio on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The name of the show is Detroit Front and Center. I actually met Dr. Fleming on Facebook, and I met him, by befriending him on Facebook, and then I noticed that he kept talking about Detroit politicians, about how evil they were, about how murderous they were. He continued to talk about the people of Detroit and how their minds are filled with murder and all kinds of devilishment, and he also talked about the black activists and etc. in Detroit that that are trying to do positive things. He would attack those activists constantly as people filled with murder in their minds and etc. And talk about the murder rate in Detroit and etc. And he would say he had the solution to solving the murder in Detroit. And these were the kind of messages that he was posting on Facebook. So being a radio show host and everything, that interested me, that this doctor supposedly said he had answers to the crime problem and the murder that's happening in Detroit. That he wrote a book saying that he has the solution. So I contacted Dr. Fleming, and asked that he would be a guest, if he would be a guest on my show, the Urban Revolution show, describing and explaining his cure for the crime problem in Detroit. And we did a show that I named Cure for Detroit. And, we went through the whole process of, talking about his education, his degree, and etc., his degrees and etc., and the cure that he had to offer for the murder and crime in Detroit. Okay? And shortly after that show, I was contacted by a long-term friend of the family that we consider family. This long-term friend of the family told me that I actually knew Dr. Fleming, that from the 1990s, that Dr. Fleming used to work for me. And this friend reminded me of who Dr. Fleming was, because I didn't know. It's been so long. It was like 93, 94 that I had hired. He wasn't a doctor at the time, but I had hired him, this individual, as a tutor to tutor my son in mathematics. And what happened was that the guy who I hired, which is Dr. Fleming, he came, I guess he tutored him about maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And then he collected in advance a bunch, money. He collected money from a whole circle of family and friends that we had introduced him to. and he collected this money in advance, and instead of returning to tutor the students that he had collected money in advance for, he left town with the money. He gained our confidence, had us pay him up front, and then he took off with the money. I noticed that he collected from several people in advance, and then he took off and left town. Okay. I never thought about it again. I got ripped off. Several other people in the family were ripped off and etc. by this tutor and etc. And we went on with our life. Things happen. And it's 2012 now, and this was like in 1993, 94, right around in there. Okay, but like I said, after I spoke with Dr. Fleming with my Cure for Detroit show, a family friend called and said, yes, that same Dr. Fleming is the guy who ripped you off in the 90s. He's a con artist. Okay, and that's what started me to looking into said Dr. Fleming and trying to figure out exactly is this true, what's being said about Dr. Fleming. So I did look into it, and I want to get right into it right here. With Dr. Fleming's education. And this is from the Cure for Detroit show, which was just a little while back, and I'll stop it and say a few things from time to time as we examine Dr. Fleming's education. Can you tell the listeners again how you came by your doctorate and your degree and etc.?
Okay, yes, sir. As I said before, that the paper does not make the degree. The person makes the degree. And as I said before, that the doctor is the one who can heal. You have many doctors who cannot heal. They hold the letters, but they cannot heal. So I'm not a doctor because I have paper. I'm a doctor because I've discovered a healing principle, a law that actually works. And I mentioned before that just as Einstein was a patent clerk, and when he came upon relativity, because he did not have the required strength in algebra and calculus, he had to literally go back to school and strengthen his algebra and calculus to describe his postulation.
Amen.
But still, he was able to discover relativity as a result.
Right.
Now, that being said, I do have an earned doctorate degree in engineering physics from the University of California. As I said earlier, I did my doctoral thesis on time travel, and I dabbled into different modes of possibilities of time travel, and we actually engaging in time travel in the 21st century.
Yeah.
I went to Detroit Public Schools, and I failed all the way through until I got to the 8th grade. They still passed me. They passed me socially.
Okay. Here, Dr. Fleming admits that he went to Detroit Public Schools and he failed all the way through the classes as far as getting an education, as far as establishing his basics in mathematics and etc., which would be, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and in learning to read and etc. That he failed all the way through up until the 8th grade. I'll continue.
failed, never did anything through the up until the 8th grade, and I have the transcripts to prove it.
Dr. Fleming says he never did anything up until the 8th grade. He failed, but they were still pushing him through. They were passing him, even though he never did any academic work or anything. And he says he has the transcripts to prove that he failed and everything. Now, I don't know where he would get transcripts from through the 8th grade, because I know I didn't really get a transcript until, I entered high school. What I was getting was report cards and etc. In elementary school and in junior high school. I never had any access to a transcript in junior high school, but maybe he did get a transcript from junior high school that proves that he failed all his courses, but they passed him anyway. Now, I don't know why any junior high school would give him a transcript showing that he failed all his classes and etc. But they passed him anyway, because it's an indictment of the teachers and the school itself for them to give that kind of a transcript to a student showing that you clearly failed, but we passed you anyway. But we'll continue with Dr. Fleming's education.
That they literally passed me even though I did nothing, but when I got to the 8th grade, somebody got a conscience and decided to fail me.
Okay.
I decided that I was not.
He says when he got to the 8th grade, somebody decided that they were going to fail him. Okay, somebody got a conscience and said, no, we cannot pass this guy anymore. And let me tell you, when I went to school, we went all the way through the 6th grade in elementary school. And then when you passed to the 7th grade, you went to junior high school. If he has a transcript, his transcript only has the 7th grade on it. And as you can see, he didn't pass the 8th grade. Whoever it was failed him. He didn't do the 9th grade in junior high school. I mean, it's like a very short transcript if he has one at all. We'll continue.
I'm not going to sit in that junior high school another year, so I decided to go over to McKenzie High School, enroll myself in McKenzie High School.
Right.
Turns out that they thought they let me enroll until they straightened it all out. It took them a year and a half.
Dr. Fleming then says that he failed in junior high school in the 8th grade. They didn't pass him. So he decided that since they didn't pass him, he wasn't going to sit in the junior high school another year. What he did was he went over to McKenzie High School, okay, on his own, and enrolled in McKenzie High School, without actually having passed the 8th grade at junior high. So basically, he dropped out of junior high school and went over to the high school and conned the high school administration into enrolling him into high school, and figured out, what's going on with his grades and etc. and his records from junior high school. So he conned his way into high school, which it fits perfectly with what the family member told me about said Dr. Fleming, the fact that he's able to con his way into high school. And also, like I said, he collected money from me and several family members and etc. and left town with the money without providing the service that he was paid for. we'll continue.
Have to straighten it out. I went in the 9th grade at Mackenzie High School. They discovered that I should not have been in the high school until I was midway through the 10th grade. They wanted to put me back in the 8th grade, and I quit because I was doing well in school, and I thought that this was stupid,
Okay.
and I threw away that thing.
Mackenzie High did their job, according to Dr. Fleming here, Dr. Fleming. Okay. They did their job. They found out that he didn't belong in the high school and decided to send him back to the 8th grade where he belonged. Okay. To pass the 8th grade and come on to high school if he can do the 8th grade. He felt that he was doing well. I don't know whether he was doing well or not because he didn't have any basics from junior high in order to do well in high school. Okay. But he says he was doing well and he didn't want to go back to junior high. He felt he was too old or whatever. So he decided to quit the high school. It's like a second dropout. Of course, he dropped out of the junior high school. He never should have been in the high school. But then he says he dropped out of the high school also. Okay. Let's continue.
Thinking all together, I said they must. I'm a 17-year-old thinking this.
Yeah.
They must not know what they're doing because anybody who had sense would say, okay, the guy is doing this, so why would we want to put him back in the 8th grade? So I quit. I gave up on school. About a year later, I went and took a GED.
He quit school. Like I said, he quit high school again. He already quit junior high. They wanted to send him back, to the junior high. He said, no, I'm not going back. And he quit the high school that he had conned his way into. Okay? And then he says about a year after he quit high school, high school drop, junior high dropout, high school dropout. About a year later, he went and took a GED. He didn't mention doing any studying or anything to pass the GED. He just says that he went and took the GED. And let's continue.
Worked as an auto mechanic, decided to move to California. I moved to California and worked a little while as a mechanic. Decided I wanted to go to law school, only having a GED. I called several law schools to see what it took for me to get in, and they all humored me. They all, laughed at me basically, except
Right.
Western State University College of Law, which accepted me, assuming I scored high on the LSAT and get an associate's degree. I did that.
He says that he got a GED, and then he started working as a mechanic. Okay. And then he moved out to California and decided that he wanted to go to law school with his GED. And they wouldn't accept him except he pass, an LSAT test and get an associate's degree. Now, I talked to several, law school students and etc., and they tell me that it's practically impossible to get into law school without a bachelor's degree. You can't get into law school even with an associate's degree. This is what they're telling me. Now, he named that he went to Western State University in California. I looked at Western State University, Western State College of Law, where he said he went, and I looked at the admissions requirements. And the admission requirement, the third button, the third dot here, says that you must have completed a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution prior to matriculation at the law school, no particular undergraduate major is required. Okay? So you must have completed a bachelor's degree. This is an admission requirement at, let's roll it back up here, at Western State College of Law. Okay, that's an admission requirement. And if you go down further, this is part of your application, you know, to get into. This is part of your file. In order for the admissions team to look over your application, you have to have a complete file with your degree and etc. in it, with your LSAT test, with your letters of recommendation, and with your personal statement and transcripts and different things like this, in order to get into this Western State College of Law. But miraculously, Dr. Fleming was able to get in by some kind of way, passing this LSAT test. I mean, this is like an LSAT test to get into a law college. Okay? Dr. Fleming passed this test after dropping out of high school, after dropping out of junior high school, and getting a GED a year after he dropped out of junior high and high school. Never mentioning the fact that he even studied for the GED anywhere. You know, he said he worked as a mechanic and etc. Which is what maybe some people do that don't get a GED or whatever. You know, get a skill or a trade or something like that. But we'll continue with the miraculous education of Dr. Fleming.
Got into law school,
He worked as a law clerk.
All these black men.
He got into law school. Okay. He got in with a GED. Right. He's supposed to earn an associate's while he's there or whatever. He don't have the associates yet. They, according to him, you know, they told him he could get in if he passed the LSAT and earned an associate's while he was there or whatever. But he started working as a law clerk some kind of way, with no paper or anything. Okay, let me go on.
Coming in, getting 5, 10, 20, 30 life sentences, and realized I had to do something on the other end. So I went back to school, studied physics, and the rest is history.
He studied,
and I wrote these books.
Physics, okay, and started writing books. He studied physics, but he's writing like Cure for Detroit, and he writes another book on, you know, how to beat alcoholism, because he does mention in another show that he was an alcoholic at one point. And I've had other people that have known him in the past to tell me that he was also a drug addict earlier in his life. So let's continue with the miraculous education of said Dr. Fleming. Amen. Tell me about
that. I have an earned degree.
Okay, tell me about that Mackenzie High. What year was that?
This was in the 80s, the early
Okay,
80s,
Dr. Fleming
83.
just said
Mm-hmm.
I graduated. He was in Mackenzie High School in the 80s, right? And then he names 83. I myself went to Mackenzie High School. I graduated from Mackenzie High School in 1975. Now, if you will look here on this this thing here, classmates.com. Here we have Alonzo Fleming in the class of 1975, which is the same class that I graduated out of, and I don't remember Alonzo Fleming. He just got through saying that he was in Mackenzie in the 80s, and he named the 83. Okay, but here he says, I transferred to the Big Mac, which is Mackenzie High, from Post Middle School in 1972. Okay, according to classmates.com and his information here on the internet. Okay, if he transferred to Mackenzie in 1972 and he was still there in 1983, he was in high school for 11 years. 11 years. You know, just according to what we're looking at and what he said. Okay, let's go back and continue with the miraculous education of Dr. Fleming, said Dr. Fleming. In 1975, Detroit Mackenzie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm a little older than you. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I was looking at some of your books, like The Cure for Detroit and The Fasting 101, The Devil's Advocate, and I'm interested in that cure for Detroit and this violent situation. You know, and I've been listening and looking at your web, you know, you on Facebook and different things, and the posts that you make, and I'm still, you know, curious. You know, although you know, a lot of people are like brushing you off to the side and not really at the time
taking you
serious. I didn't know why people were brushing him off to the side and not taking him serious. But you know, after getting the call from the family friend, and after going back and checking different facts and etc., and looking at different things that he said and etc., none of it's adding up, you know, to Dr. Fleming having an education at all. It's really not, especially a doctorate in engineering physics. This is what he says he has, a doctorate in engineering physics. He says he done his thesis on time travel. You know, his doctoral thesis on time travel. I mean, the guy's a rocket scientist, okay? With a weak and shallow education, dropping out of junior high school, conning his way into high school, getting found out in high school, dropping out of high school, letting a whole year slip by, and then he says he got a GED, okay? And then he takes his GED and gets into law school with it, you know, works a little bit, looks at all the black folks running, you know, being ran through law school, being ran through the jails and etc. because he's working as a law clerk in the public defender's office. Okay? But he sees all the black folks being ran through the system, and he decides, this is not something that I want to do. And I guess he goes back to college into physics, and earns a bachelor's degree, and then a master's degree, right? And then he goes on to earn a doctorate in engineering physics. Okay, I'm gonna just call it, what I think it is. I think it's bullshit. Okay, this whole doctorate thing is suspect. I'm not saying he doesn't have a degree on the wall and different things like that, with his name on it. They sell those on eBay and different places like that. And, although it's illegal to have these kinds of things, you can get them right along with transcripts. And being the type of con artist that this guy is, I do believe he could have came across, a degree to hang on his wall. But he's no doctor. I've looked at some of his writings and his posts on Facebook. And, he doesn't command English very well. You've heard him speak. His vocabulary is very street. He doesn't sound like an educated man. Like big time education. His vocabulary. He's lying. His wife, a part of the Fleming team, Sharice Fleming, her past name, one of her past names, because she had several past names, and so does he. As a matter of fact, in my searches and etc. on the internet, I've found that Dr. Fleming has had several names. He flips Alonzo around with Richard, and he flips his last name with other names. He's been called, let me name some of these names that he's been called. He's been called Richard A. Slimming. He's even been called Richard A. Shabazz, okay, where he may have even wore a turban at the time he was being called Shabazz, because, and portrayed himself as an African of some sort. He's also been known as Richard A. Flaminga, okay, Richard A. Flaminga, and Dr. Alonzo Fleming and other names as well. Also, his wife, like I said, Sharice Annette Fleming. I looked her up and etc. And it turns out that she has a criminal record. It's on the screen right now. Sharice Annette Rembert, black female, black hair, brown eyes, 5'4", 135 pounds. Her date of birth, 12/30/1969. Okay. This is Dr. Fleming's wife. Said Dr. Fleming. She's under court supervision, or the supervision of the Michigan Department of Corrections, I should say. Her supervision date began in 2010, in October 2010, and her supervision discharge date is 10/26/2015. So she's presently under court supervision. She's been convicted of failure to pay child support. Her sentence here is failing to pay child support. The maximum sentence being 5 years in prison for that. But I guess she's out under court supervision. She took a plea. Okay. And the date of her sentence was October 26, 2010. The date of the offense, 5/1/2003. They didn't catch up with her until 2010. Not paying child support. Now, these are supposed to be educators and people that are in love with children and etc. And here you have Dr. Fleming and his wife, basically, who are not taking care of one of their own and not even feeding them, you know. And let me tell you, for a woman to lose custody of her children, something really has to be wrong with the woman in order for her to end up on the end where she's paying the child support and the father of the child is collecting from her. She just about has to be a drug addict or very abusive or something like that in order to lose her children or her child, lose custody of her child and end up paying child support to the husband and etc. or to the man or whatever. Okay, it says no violation of any criminal law. This is a part of her condition. She can't violate any criminal law, not leave the state without permission. She has to do monthly reporting, notify the courts of whatever if she changes her address, pay a crime victims assessment, pay supervision fees pursuant to PA 185 of 1993. She must pay child support, and she's got to pay state costs as well. Okay. So basically, she got so far behind that she became a felon in her child support in Michigan. And she is now under court supervision, paying off that debt. Like I said, Dr. Fleming was a con man. He admitted he conned his way into high school. Okay. Other people reminded me that he conned me and them, gained our confidence as a tutor and etc. Of course, this was in 93 or whatever. He said he graduated, not graduated, but dropped out of the high school, I guess in the 80s, in 83. That's what he said. Okay, that was 10 years after. He didn't have any doctorate or anything at the time that I know that he was working for me as a tutor, or any degree, but, he knew some mathematics, enough to teach my child that was in he was in elementary. I believe he was still in elementary, or it may be the beginning of junior high, but I think it was elementary. Yeah, it was elementary school that he was in. I could have taught him myself the mathematics and etc., but I didn't have the patience, because I would tell him how to do it and etc., and then he would get it wrong when I just told him the way to do it. You know what I'm saying? and still mess up by not following the instructions and stuff. It was just frustrating, to see someone keep messing up when you told them how to do it, and etc. And I just didn't have the skills and the patience to work with him like I should. So I hired a tutor, who I thought would be more professional and everything. But it turns out it was a flim-flam, man. It was said Dr. Fleming and Sharice here, Sharice Annette Rembert, who they claim to be married for 16 years. Maybe, I don't know. Do they have any paper saying they're married? I don't know. Maybe not. As you can see, like Dr. Fleming said, that also, Dr. Fleming, look, you got me calling him Dr. Fleming. Dr. Fleming also said he, in his things here, that he was in the class of 1975, and he transferred to Post Middle School in 72, and he transferred from Post Middle School to high school in 72. But then in my show, Cure for Detroit, he says he got out of high school, dropped out of there in 1983, which was 11 years later from 1972. I'm just saying, I believe Dr. Fleming is a con man. I've looked on the on the web and etc., and looked at several businesses and etc. that he runs over the internet and etc., where I think he gains people's confidence and etc., and he takes them for small amounts of money and etc., and leaves town, moves around a lot, changes his name and etc., from Alonzo to Richard to Rick to Fleming to Shabazz to, everything is just, typical flim-flam. Nothing adds up when you really look deep into the guy. He's not very good at what he's doing, okay? And I did introduce him to Revolution Radio, where he said he wanted to go over and possibly do a show. And he's doing a show now. Like I said, it's called Detroit Front and Center, where he rags on Detroit. He talks about Detroit constantly, about how bad it is, how horrible it is, how he has the cure for Detroit, how the politicians are nothing, how the activists here in Detroit are nothing but murderous people. And he talks about the civil rights leaders and the church pastors and everything, and how they're nothing but scam artists and this, that, and the other. And it also turns out that Dr. Fleming, excuse me, it also turns out that, let me just say, Alonzo Fleming lost his father. According to him, he lost his father to murder. And I believe that's a part of the book in Cure for Detroit, that his father was murdered here in Detroit City, possibly by a black man. He claims that, he's had cousins and uncles and etc. murdered as well. And him losing his father was extremely painful. As a matter of fact, Sharice read some of that on the last show that they did on Revolution Radio, some of his book, the section where he talked about the pain and etc. that he's suffering. as a result of the loss of his father. But personally, I think that that loss has been very painful, and that it turned Dr. Fleming against black people. You know, having his father murdered by a black man and his uncles murdered, and etc. But his father and his uncles and etc. may have been into things, you know, considering his past drug history and his past history of alcohol abuse and etc. This may have been something that the family suffered with, you know, that kind of activity and etc. And the murders being a result of that kind of activity and etc. And Dr. Fleming just has a heart filled with hate for Detroit. And although his show is named Detroit Front and Center, he doesn't live in Detroit. You know, he's lived in Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield. You know, Sharice, his wife, started out in Highland Park on Derby Street in a 1-bath, 1,000 square foot home. And, you know, she worked her way out of there with Dr. Fleming, I guess. And, you know, she kisses the ground he walks on, and etc. But Dr. Fleming has some mental issues. Aside from being a flim-flam man, him and his wife being flim-flammers, he has mental issues and a lot of pain involved in the death of his family members. And you know, I wish the guy well. You know, I'm not, you know, bitter about being ripped off in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for somebody reminding me of that, you know, I would have known nothing about it or cared nothing about it. You know, even now I don't care about it. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of money, and you know, it's over. It's done. You know, my kids are adults. You know, so at this point, I'm going to go back to Cure for Detroit here for a minute. Let me see. Can I find that here? Offender. We'll close the offender tracking maybe. And see what's going on here. This, like I said, this is Sharice's record. Not taking care of her own child. Boom. This is Dr. Fleming's admission requirements for you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into law school. You know, he went in with a GED, according to him. I'll close this one. Just closing screens. This is Alonzo Fleming, class of 1975. Of course, you heard him say that he dropped out in 1983. So, you know, 11 years at the high school. And he decided that, well, they decided that he shouldn't be there. And tried to send him back and everything to junior high school after I don't know, 11 years. I don't know. Okay, what I'm going to do is just end this right here. And thanks for listening in. This is What I Am, ex-radio host at Revolution Radio